Ladies and gentlemen, I do not know your name. I do not know your face or your story, or the particular weight of worry you carry when you think about money. But I know this. Somewhere in your past, you were made to feel that abundance was not meant for you. Perhaps it was a word spoken carelessly by someone who loved you but did not understand the power of their tongue. Perhaps it was watching someone you trusted struggle month after month, year after year, until you absorbed their belief that life was meant to be hard. Perhaps it was the silent message of scarcity that hummed beneath your childhood home like electricity in the walls, never spoken aloud, but felt in every anxious conversation, every careful counting, every dream deferred, because there simply was not enough. That wound is still open, and every time you check your balance with fear in your heart, every time you hesitate before a purchase, not because you are wise, because you are afraid, every time you lie awake, calculating what you owe against you have, you press upon that wound. You reopen it. You let it bleed again into the fabric of your days. I cannot heal that wound for you, only you can. But I can show you where the healing begins. And I tell you now, with the certainty of one who has witnessed this truth proven again and again in the lives of those who dared to test it, the healing does not begin in the world of bank accounts and bills. It does not begin in the world of jobs and opportunities and fortunate circumstances. It begins in the world of cause. And cause, my friend, is imagination. Imagination and imagination alone. Tonight I am going to share with you something that most people will never understand because they are looking in the wrong direction. They are looking outward when they should be looking inward. They are trying to rearrange the furniture of their lives when they should be redesigning the blueprint from which all furniture is made. They are treating symptoms when they should be addressing the disease. And the disease is not poverty. The disease is a false belief about nature of wealth and where it comes from. You have been taught from the moment you could understand words that money is something outside of you, something to be earned, chased, deserved, or received from forces beyond your control. You have been told that some people are lucky and some are not, that some are born into advantage and others must claw their way through life, that the economy decides your fate, that your employer holds your future in their hands, that circumstances are the masters and you are the servant. And because you believe this, your imagination, which is the only creative power in the universe, faithfully built the prison around you, not to punish you, not because you are unworthy, but because imagination does not judge what you give it. It simply creates. It takes whatever assumption you hold in feeling, and it projects that assumption outward into the world of form. It does not ask if your assumption is true or false, good or bad, serving you or destroying you. It only asks, what do you believe yourself to be? And then it makes that belief visible. This is not philosophy. This is not positive thinking. This is not one perspective among many. This is law as exact as the law of gravity, as impersonal as the rising of the sun. And the moment you understand this law, the moment it moves from your head into your heart, from intellectual concept into living truth, your entire relationship with money will change. Not because the world outside you has shifted, but because the world inside you has transformed, and the outer world has no choice but to follow. So let me tell you why you are here watching this at this particular moment in your life. You are here because something in you knows there is more. Something in you refuses to accept that limitation is your destiny. Something in you perhaps buried beneath years of disappointment and compromise still whispers that abundance is your birthright, and that something, that quiet voice within, is not fantasy. It is the voice of truth. It is the voice of the deeper self that knows what you have forgotten. That you are not a creature at the mercy of circumstance. You are a creator who has been creating unconsciously and is now being called to create with awareness. The pain this teaching addresses is simple but devastating. You have spent your life trying to change your financial circumstances by manipulating the world of effects. You have reorganized the deck chairs while the ship continued to sink. You have pushed against the reflection in the mirror, not realizing that the reflection cannot change until you change. You have worked harder, saved more carefully, worried more intensely, and perhaps prayed more desperately, all while never touching the actual lever of power. That lever is not outside you. It is not in the hands of your employer or your government or the mysterious forces of the economy. That lever is your own consciousness, your own imagination, your own feeling of what you are. And here is what I offer you that you will not find elsewhere. Not because others do not teach these things, but because you are ready now to hear them. You do not need more money. You need to become the consciousness of wealth. The outer form is always secondary. Let me say this again because it is the foundation of everything. The outer form is always secondary to the inner state. When the wealthy man loses everything, what happens? Why? Because his consciousness never left the state of abundance. The loss was external. The identity remained intact. And from that identity, wealth flows again as naturally as water flows downhill. When the poor man inherits a fortune, what happens? Statistics tell us clearly within a few years, often within months, the money is gone. Not because he was cheated or foolish in some unusual way, but because his consciousness remained impoverished. The wealth was external. The identity of lack remained intact. And from that identity, poverty recreated itself as inevitably as spring follows winter. You are not trying to get wealth. You are returning to who you already are in God. And God, I tell you, plainly is your own wonderful human imagination. The Bible says, I am that I am. This is not the name of a distant deity sitting on a throne in some far away heaven. This is the nature of consciousness itself. I am before you are anything else. Before you are rich or poor, successful or struggling, worthy or unworthy. You simply are. And that I am, that pure awareness of being, is the creative power from which all conditions flow. Now, here is the great inversion that most people never see. Most people believe they are waiting for circumstances to change before they can feel wealthy. They say, when I have more money, then I will feel secure. When I pay off this debt, then I will feel free. When I get that raise, then I will feel abundant. But this is precisely backward. This is the version that keeps millions trapped in cycles of lack, generation after generation. The truth is this: feel wealthy first, and circumstances must reorganize themselves around that feeling. Not because feeling is magic in some mystical sense, but because feeling is the creative state from which all things are formed. Feeling is the secret. Feeling is the language the subconscious understands. Feeling is the mold into which the substance of reality pours itself. Scripture says, "Whatsoever things ye desire when ye pray, believe that ye receive and then shall have them." Read that carefully. It does not say, "Believe that you will receive them someday." It says, "Believe that you receive them." Present tense, already accomplished. The believing, the feeling of already having is the cause. The having is the effect. By the end of this teaching, you will understand why your bank balance is a mirror, not a master. You will know exactly how to change the reflection. And you will possess a practice so simple that it requires no money, no special connections, no permission from anyone. Only your willingness to occupy a new state in imagination and persist in that state until it hardens into fact. But before I give you the practice, you must understand why it works. And to understand that, I must tell you a story. Not a fairy tale, not a metaphor. A true account of a man who had nothing, who received everything, and who never lifted a finger in the outer world to make it happen. There was a man who came to me years ago in a state of quiet desperation. He worked at a bank, not as a wealthy executive, but in a position that barely provided for his family. He had children approaching the age when education becomes expensive, when the choices you make about schools and opportunities begin to shape the rest of their lives. And he knew with painful clarity that his current income could not support the future he wanted for them. He had gone to his superiors and asked, as any reasonable person would, about the possibility of advancement, and they told him, with the casual cruelty of those who hold power over others, that no major improvement was possible. They intimated in that cold language of bureaucracy that if he was dissatisfied, he was free to seek employment elsewhere. As if leaving was simple, as if starting over was easy, as if the invisible chains of obligation and fear and the weight of responsibilities did not bind him exactly where he was. When he came to me, he was not asking for miracles. He told me he had no great desire for fabulous riches. He simply needed enough to maintain his home comfortably, enough to send his children to good schools, enough to stop the constant anxiety that gnawed at him every time he looked a bill or thought about the future. Is that not what most people want? Not mansions and yachts, but simply enough peace, security, the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are provided for. But here is what I told him, and here is what I tell you now. Your present situation, whatever it is only a manifestation of your concept of yourself. It is not fixed. It is not permanent. It is not decreed by forces outside your control. It is a picture painted by an artist you have not recognized. And that artist is your own imagination operating through the feeling of what you are. If you want to change the picture, you cannot do it by attacking the canvas. You cannot do it by complaining about the colors or wishing the shapes were different. You can only do it by changing the artist's vision. And the artist's vision is your assumption about yourself. I told this man that if he wanted different circumstances, he had to change his concept of himself. Not hope for a change, not work toward a change, not pray for a change in the conventional sense of begging some external power to intervene. He had to assume to take on as already real the state he wished to experience. He had to become in his imagination the man He wanted to be before the outer world gave him permission. I gave him a simple practice. Every night, I said, before you fall asleep, you are to imagine that you are retiring at the end of one of the most important and successful days of your life. You are to actually feel in your body and mind the satisfaction of having closed a deal that very day to join the kind of organization you yearn with in exactly the capacity you have always wanted. I told him not to worry about how this would happen, not to try to figure out the steps, not to construct a plan or a strategy. Just the feeling, just the end, the wish, fulfilled. I suggested that if he succeeded in completely filling his mind with this feeling, he would experience a definite sense of relief. His uneasiness and discontent would dissolve. In their place would come the contentment that only fulfillment brings. And I assured him with the certainty of one who has tested this law countless times that if he did this faithfully, he would inevitably get the kind of position he wanted. This was the first week of December. Night after night, without exception, he followed this practice. He would lie in his bed, close his eyes, and feel himself successful. Not hoping to be successful, not wishing for success, being successful. Feeling the reality of it, tasting it, inhabiting it as if it were already accomplished. Fact. Early in February, less than 2 months later, something remarkable happened. A director from one of the wealthiest foundations in the world, an organization this man had never approached or contacted, reached out to him unprompted, unsolicited, out of the clear blue sky of what the world calls chance. This director asked if the man would be interested in joining the foundation in an executive capacity handling investments. After a brief discussion, he accepted. And today, with a substantially higher income and the assurance of steady progress in his career, this man occupies a position far exceeding anything he had dared to hope for. Now let me ask you, what happened here? Did this man network his way into this position? Did he send resumes, make phone calls, manipulate circumstances? No, he lay in his bed and imagined. He felt the end as if it were already real. And the entire structure of his world rearranged itself to conform to his imagination. This is not coincidence. This is law. The world is plastic and fluid in the hands of God. And God, I tell you again, is your own awareness, your own imagination, your own feeling of what you are. Your assumption is the hand of God molding the firmament into its image. Take on the assumption of wealth. Persist in it. Feel it as real. And the firmament has no choice but to take that shape. Let me tell you another story, because I know that some of you are thinking that is a beautiful account. But perhaps that man was special. Perhaps he had connections he did not know about. Perhaps circumstances were simply ready to change for him regardless. I understand this doubt. I have heard it many times. So, let me share something that happened to a woman who had no connections, no advantages, and no reason to expect the abundance that came to her. A mother traveled to San Francisco to visit her daughter. She expected to find the happy, carefree woman she had always known. Instead, she found her daughter in deep distress, her face drawn with worry, her spirit crushed by a financial crisis. The daughter needed $3,000 immediately. Not eventually, not when convenient, immediately. Now, this mother was not a poor woman, but she did not have that kind of cash readily available. And even if she had, she knew her daughter well, enough to know she would never accept it directly. The daughter had her pride. She had her independence. She would not take what she perceived as charity even from her own mother. So the daughter asked for something else. She said, "Help me in your way." And the mother knew exactly what she meant. For years, this mother had studied and practiced the law of imagination. She had learned that consciousness is the only reality, that what you assume with feeling must become fact. And now her daughter, in her moment of desperation, was asking for that kind of help. The mother agreed, but with one condition: the daughter would have to help her help herself. They would do this together. Both women would enter into imagination. Both would feel as vividly as possible the problem already solved not being solved, not on its way to solution. Solved, done, finished, accomplished. What happened next defies all conventional explanation. An old friend, someone the mother had not seen or heard from in more than 25 years, suddenly reappeared in her life. This friend had become extremely wealthy in the intervening decades, and for reasons that were never fully explained. For reasons that the mother never completely understood, because she never contacted this friend directly, he decided to share a portion of his great wealth with her. Not just the 3,000 she needed for her daughter. From the office of his attorney came monthly checks so generous that they covered every necessary requirement of daily living and left much over for all the lovely things of life. A car, beautiful clothes, a spacious apartment, and best of all, no need to earn her daily bread. This continued not for months, but for years, and eventually a letter arrived with legal papers that provided for the continuation of this income for the rest of her natural life. Can you hear what I am telling you? A woman imagined. She felt the reality of abundance in 25 years of separation dissolved. Old connections rekindled, legal arrangements were made, and provision flowed to her for the rest of her days. Not because she earned it in the conventional sense. Not because she deserved it more than others, but because she assumed it. Because she inhabited the state of the wish fulfilled. Because she knew the law and she applied it. The how is never your concern. Do you understand this? The how is not something you can figure out in advance. The how is not something you can plan or control. Your job, your only job, is to assume the end, to feel the wish fulfilled, to occupy the state as if it were already fact. And then, the bridge of incidents, the mysterious pathway from where you are to where you want to be, will form itself in ways you could never have imagined. You do not devise the means. The means devise themselves. You simply dwell in the end. Think from your desire, not of it. When you think of your desire, it remains separate from you, something to be obtained, something in the future. When you think from your desire, you are already there. You have arrived. You are looking back at the journey as if it were already complete. And from that state, from that vantage point, that entire world reorganizes itself to match your assumption. Now let me give you something even deeper, because I know that some of you have heard teachings like this before and thought, yes, but how does it actually work? What is the mechanism? Why should imagination have any effect on the world of hard facts and cold numbers? This is a fair question, and the answer lies in understanding what Scripture really teaches. Not as history, not as the record of events that happened to other people long ago, but as the revelation of psychological truth that is operating in you right now. There is a parable in the gospel that most people read as a moral lesson and completely misunderstand. It is the parable of the unjust steward found in the 16th chapter of Luke. Let me tell you this story as it is written, and then let me show you what it really means. A certain rich man had a steward, and this steward was accused of wasting his master's goods. The master called him in and said, "What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your stewardship, for you may no longer be steward." The steward said to himself, "What shall I do? My master is taking away my position. I cannot dig. I am ashamed to beg. I know what I will do, so that when I am put out of my stewardship, they may receive me into their houses." So he called every one of his master's debtors to and said the first, "How much do you owe my master?" He said, 1 measure of oil. And the steward said, "Take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. Then he said to another, "How much do you owe?" He said, "A 100 measures of wheat." The steward said, "Take your bill and write 80. Now, here is the shocking part. The master commended the unjust steward for his shrewdness. The master praised him, not for his honesty, because he was not honest, not for his morality, because he had falsified the records, but for his shrewdness, for his ability to alter what was written, for his willingness to mentally rewrite the debts. What is this parable really teaching? The steward is you. The master is your own deeper self. The I am that creates all things. The debtors are the circumstances and people in your life. And the falsification of the records is what I call revision. The imaginative act of rewriting what has been. When your past speaks of limitation, when your memory holds scenes of lack and struggle and insufficiency, you are being called to be an unjust steward, not to lie in the outer world, but to mentally rewrite the inner records, to refuse the evidence of your senses, to substitute in imagination the vision of your ideal for the facts that seem so solid and so real. This is not wishful thinking. This is not denial. This is the creative act upon which all transformation depends. What your imagination makes, your imagination can unmake. What has been recorded in consciousness can be revised in consciousness. And when the revision is accepted as more real than the original, when you feel the new version as true, the outer world must conform. Now I must take you deeper still into the very structure of consciousness itself, so that you understand not just what to do, but why it works. Once you see this, you cannot unsee it. Your entire relationship with money, with abundance, with possibility itself will be transformed at the root. Everything in your experience begins with 2 simple words: I am. These are the most powerful words you will ever speak, either aloud or in the silence of your own mind. I am is the first cause substance from which all things emerge. It is not a statement about what you have or what you do. It is a declaration of being, and what follows those 2 words becomes your creative command to the universe. When you say, "I am poor," you are not describing a condition that exists independently of you. You are creating that condition. You are giving instruction to the creative power within you. And that power which does not judge, which does not argue, which simply obeys, goes to work immediately to bring your declaration into visible form. When you say, "I am worried about money," you are not merely expressing an emotion. You are occupying a state. And the state you occupy determines what you experience. The world is a mirror. It can only show you what you are showing it. Change what you are showing it, and the reflection must change. This is why Scripture says, "Let the weak man say, I am strong." Not because saying it without feeling will accomplish anything, but because when you say it with feeling, when you occupy the state of strength as if it were already yours, you rearrange the cause substance of consciousness. And rearranged consciousness must manifest as rearranged circumstances. Here is the liberating truth. You have infinite free will in choosing your assumptions. You can assume anything. You can occupy any state. There is no external force that can stop you from imagining yourself wealthy, successful, provided for, abundant. The limitation is not in the universe. The limitation is in your unwillingness to assume what you believe is impossible. But nothing is impossible to consciousness. Nothing is beyond the reach of imagination. With God, says Scripture, all things are possible. And God is your I am, your awareness of being, your imagination. But here is the balance of this truth. While you have infinite freedom to choose your assumptions, you have no power to determine how they manifest. You choose the end. The means choose themselves. You select the destination. The route unfolds according to laws you cannot see and do not need to understand. Your job is to assume. The job of the universe is to deliver. Let me speak now about inner speech, because this is where most people unknowingly sabotage themselves. Your inner speech, the conversations you carry on with yourself all day long, the commentary that runs beneath your conscious awareness is creating your tomorrow. Every word you speak inwardly is a seed planted in the soil of consciousness, and every seed must bring forth after its own kind. Most people are completely unaware of their inner talking. They do not hear themselves saying, "I can't afford it." They do not notice the constant refrain of money is always tight, or something always goes wrong, or people like me don't get breaks like that. These phrases run automatically like programs executing in the background of a computer. And because they are unexamined, they continue to create unconsciously what could be created consciously. The whole manifested world, says the Apostle James, goes to show us what use we have, made of the word. The tongue is a little member and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. Your inner speech is that fire. It kindles either the flame of abundance or the flame of lack, depending on what you are saying to yourself beneath the threshold of conscious awareness. So let me ask you, what are you saying? Not just out loud, but in the privacy of your own mind when you see something you desire. What words arise? I could never afford that. That's not for people like me. Maybe someday. These words are not neutral observations. They are creative commands. They are instructions to the only power that creates, telling it to continue creating what you do not want. The solution is not complicated, but it requires vigilance. You must observe your inner talking. You must catch yourself in the act of assuming limitation. And you must replace the old new inner speech that matches your fulfilled desire. Not what you hope to be, what you already are in imagination. Construct a sentence that implies fulfillment. Something simple, something you can repeat. I have a large, steady, dependable income. Money flows to me easily and consistently. I am always provided for. Abundance is my natural state. Choose words that feel right to you, that resonate with the state you want to occupy, and then repeat them not as empty affirmations, but as declarations of fact. Repeat them until you are inwardly affected by them, until they feel less like wishes and more like memories, until they become the natural background of your consciousness. This is what I mean by a mental diet. You must feed your imagination only that which you wish to express. If you find the world unchanged, it is a sure sign that you are wanting infidelity to the new mental diet. You have neglected the inner discipline to condemn the outer environment. But the outer environment is not the cause. The outer environment is the effect. Change the inner conversation, and the outer conversation must change. Now I must tell you about sleep, because this is where the true magic happens. I use the word magic not to suggest something supernatural in the sense of being outside natural law, but something so powerful, so transformative that it seems magical to those who do not understand its mechanism. Sleep occupies 1/3 of your life. 1/3. Think about that. A full third of your existence is spent in a state that most people consider unconscious, unproductive, merely a time for the body to repair itself. But sleep is so much more than that. Sleep is the natural door into the subconscious mind. Sleep is the time when the conscious and subconscious are creatively joined. Sleep is the portal through which your assumptions pass into manifestation. What you take into sleep as a feeling, you bring out as a condition. Let me say that again because it is perhaps the most important sentence I will speak tonight. What you take into sleep as a feeling, you bring out as a condition. The mood in which you fall asleep is the seed you plant in the garden of the subconscious. And the subconscious, unlike the conscious mind that argues and doubts and questions, accepts what it is given and faithfully reproduces it in the outer world. The Song of Solomon says, "Benight on my bed, I sought him, whom my soul loveth. I found him whom my soul loveth. I held him and would not let him go until I had brought him into my mother's house, and into the chamber of her that conceived me." This is not a love poem in the conventional sense. It is a description of the imaginative act. By night on your bed, you seek the feeling of the wish fulfilled. When you find it, you hold it. You do not let it go, and you bring it into the chamber of her that conceived you, which is the subconscious mind, the womb of all creation. Every night, as you prepare for sleep, you are performing a ritual. Whether you know or not, whether you intend it or not, you are planting seeds that will become your tomorrow. If you fall asleep in worry, you plant seeds of worry. If you fall asleep in fear, you plant seeds of fear. If you fall asleep in the feeling of lack, you plant seeds of lack. The subconscious does not distinguish between what you want and what you fear. It only accepts what you feel is real and reproduces it faithfully. But you can choose. That is the great gift. You can choose what feeling you take into sleep. You can lie down in your bed and feel yourself into the state of abundance. You can close your eyes and experience in imagination the reality of wealth. You can taste it, touch it, inhabit it, become it. And if you can fall asleep in that feeling, if you can drift into unconsciousness while holding the state of the wish fulfilled, you have planted a seed that must bear fruit. Never go to sleep feeling discouraged or dissatisfied. Never let the last feeling of the day be one of failure or lack. Thou art all fair, my love, says the scripture. There is no spot in thee. This is the attitude you must take toward your own assumption before sleep. It is perfect. It is complete. There is nothing wrong with it. And from this perfect assumption, perfect results must flow. Preparing for sleep, feel yourself into the state of the answered wish, and then relax into unconsciousness. Your realized wish is whom you seek. By night on your bed, you seek the feeling of the wish fulfilled that you may take it with you into the chamber of her that conceived you into sleep, or the subconscious which gave you form that this wish also may be given expression. This is the way to discover and conduct your wishes into the subconscious. Feel yourself in the state of the realized wish and quietly drop off to sleep. Night after night, you should assume the feeling of being, having, and witnessing that which you seek to be, assess, and see manifested. The feeling of satisfaction and accomplishment before you retire in sleep compels conditions and events to appear in your world which confirm these attitudes of mind. Sleep is the door into heaven. What you take in as a feeling, you bring out as a condition. So sleep in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Now let me speak of revision because this technique is perhaps the most powerful and least understood of all the methods I teach. Everything that has ever happened to you is still happening. Nothing disappears. Your past is not dead. It is living and active, operating beneath the surface of consciousness to influence your present and your future. The whole structure of your being, past and present together, is carrying all of its contents with it. If your past contains scenes of financial struggle, those scenes are not merely memories. They are active influences still radiating their effects into your present circumstances. The bankruptcy you experienced 10 years ago is still creating. The conversation where someone told you that you would never amount to anything is still speaking. The childhood belief that money was scarce and security was impossible is still building the walls of your prison. But here is the liberating truth. If the past can be recreated into the present, so can the revised past. What your imagination made, your imagination can unmake. You can go back in memory, not to relive the painful scenes, but to remake them. You can replay a scene of the past in imagination as it ought to have been played the first time. And when you do this, when you feel the revised version as more real than the original, the influence of the original is destroyed. The causes of present evil are removed, and the present and future must change accordingly. This is what I call revision, and revision results in repeal. Let me give you an example. Suppose today's mail brought you a bank statement that showed a balance far below what you wanted to see. Perhaps it showed overdrafts, fees, a number that made your stomach tighten with anxiety. The natural response is to accept this statement as reality, to feel the disappointment, to worry about how you will manage. But you are not limited to the natural response. You have another option. You can revise. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself opening that same envelope, but this time see a different number. See a balance that satisfies you. See a statement that brings relief instead of anxiety. Feel yourself reading it, feeling grateful, feeling secure, feeling abundant. Experience this revision not as fantasy but as fact. Make it real in your imagination. Hold it until it feels natural, until it feels more real than the memory of what actually came in the mail. This is not Denial. You are not pretending the actual statement did not arrive. You are creating a new cause that will produce a new effect. You are mentally falsifying the facts as the unjust steward did, and you are being commended for your shrewdness by the very law that creates all things. A woman once came to me who had suffered from chronic pain in her hip for nearly 40 years. The pain had begun when she was a small child after a fall from a swing. Doctors could offer only temporary relief. Medical bills had accumulated for decades, and still year after year the pain persisted. I taught her the art of revision. I told her to go back in imagination to that moment on the swing when she was 3 or 4 years old, and to replay the scene as it ought to have been. Not falling backward and being injured, but jumping forward from the swing and landing safely, solidly, easily on her feet. I told her to feel herself as that child, to feel the rush of wind as the swing rose higher and higher, and then to feel the joy of leaping down and landing without harm. She did this faithfully night after night. It took time. The memory of 40 years is not easily revised. But one night she told me she actually felt she herself on that swing. She felt the motion, the wind, the excitement, and she jumped forward, landing perfectly, running to her mother to show what she could do. Within 2 days, the pain began to recede. Within 2 months, it was gone completely. A condition that had plagued her for nearly 4 decades, that had cost a small fortune in medical bills, was no more. Because she revised the cause, the effect was changed. Because she rewrote the record, the debt was canceled. You can do this with your financial past. You can go back to the conversation where someone told you that you were not good with money, and you can replay it with different words spoken. You can go back to the moment when you first believed that abundance was not for you, and you can revise that moment, feel yourself receiving a different message, accepting a different belief. You can go back to every scene of lack and limitation and rewrite it in imagination until the emotional charge is gone and a new influence takes its place. This is the pruning shears of revision. We owe our prime fruit to these shears. Cut away what does not serve you. Rewrite what has been written poorly, and watch as the tree of your life begins to bear different fruit. Now, let me bring all of this together with the practical instruction you came here to receive. You understand the law. You understand that imagination creates reality. You understand that your assumptions determine your experience. That your inner speech is creating your tomorrow. That sleep is the portal through which assumptions become fact. And that revision can undo the causes of present limitation. Now let me tell you exactly what to do tonight. When you go to bed, you are going to perform a ritual that will change your life if you persist in it. You will lie flat on your back with your head level with your body. You will close your eyes and begin to relax, letting go of the day, letting go of worries, letting go of the endless mental chatter that normally occupies your mind. You will feel yourself becoming drowsy, entering that borderland between waking and sleeping, where the conscious and subconscious minds meet. In this state, you will imagine, not visualize from outside, as if watching a movie, but imagine from within as living an experience. You will feel yourself in a scene that implies your wishes fulfilled. Not that you will have wealth someday, that you have it now. What scene would imply that you are financially abundant? Perhaps You are checking your bank balance on your phone and seeing a number that makes you smile. Perhaps you are receiving congratulations from someone who knows about your good fortune. Perhaps you are purchasing something you have long wanted easily and without anxiety. Perhaps you are simply sitting in your home feeling the deep contentment of knowing that all is well, that you are provided for, that money is no longer a concern. Choose a scene. Make it something you would actually experience if your wish were fulfilled. And then live it in imagination. Feel your phone in your hand as you check the balance. Feel the screen illuminating your face. See the numbers, the exact numbers you want to see. Let the relief wash over you. Let the satisfaction fill your heart. Say to yourself inwardly, "Thank you. Thank you. It is done." If your scene involves another person congratulating you, hear their voice. Feel their handshake or their embrace. See the smile on their face. Receive their words as if they were actually being spoken. "I am so happy for you. You deserve this. How wonderful that everything is worked out." If your scene involves a purchase, feel the object in your hands. Feel the weight of it, the texture of it. Know that you paid for it easily from abundance with plenty left over. Let the joy of having what you wanted fill you completely. Whatever scene you choose, the key is feeling, not just seeing, feeling. The subconscious does not respond to pictures. It responds to feeling. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is what impresses the subconscious and compels it to create. So feel. Feel until the scene feels less like imagination and more like memory. Feel until it feels natural, inevitable, simply the way things are. When you reach this state, when the feeling of naturalness comes, you have succeeded. Do not rise to analyze. Do not open your eyes and wonder if it worked. Just let go. Fall asleep in the feeling. Let unconsciousness take you while you are still inhabiting the state of the wish fulfilled. You are planting a seed. You cannot plant a seed and dig it up every few hours to see if it is growing. You must plant it and leave it alone, trusting the process, trusting the law, trusting the soil of consciousness to do what soil does. Sleep in the feeling. Let go and wake in the morning to a new day in which the seed has begun to take root. But do not stop there. The morning is important too. When you wake, before you rise, before you check your phone or start your day, lie still for a few moments. Recall the feeling you held as you fell asleep. That feeling of abundance, of security, of provision. Let it flood your waking consciousness. Remind yourself, "I am provided for. All that I require flows to me with ease." Rise from your bed, as if you are rising from the sleep of limitation into the day of fulfillment. Carry the feeling with you into your morning. Do not let the first thoughts be of worry or lack. Guard your consciousness. Protect the seed you planted. Give it sunlight and water in the form of continued assumption. Throughout the day, practice the inner speech I have taught you. Observe your inner conversations about money. When you catch yourself saying, "I can't afford it," or "money is tight," or "I'm worried about bills," stop. Breathe, revise. Replace those words with their opposites spoken from the state of the wish fulfilled. I always have more than enough. Money flows to me easily. I am abundant. Do not force yourself to believe it intellectually at first. The intellect will argue. The intellect will present evidence. The intellect will list all the reasons why your assumption cannot be true. but the intellect is not the creator. Imagination is the creator, and imagination does not need the intellect's permission. Simply repeat the new inner speech until it becomes familiar, until it becomes habitual, until you no longer react to it with doubt. The frequency of this practice is the secret. The more often you occupy the new inner speech, the more rapidly it solidifies into fact. You are not trying to convince yourself of something false. You are training yourself to occupy a new state, and states once occupied habitually must express themselves in the world. In the evening, before your nightly assumption ritual, spend a few minutes revising the day. Go back through the hours and recall any financial conversation, thought, or feeling that did not match your ideal. If you worried about a bill, revise the scene. See yourself opening the mail and finding good news instead. If you spoke words of lack, revise. Hear yourself speaking words of abundance. If you saw a balance that disturbed you, revise. See the balance you wish to see. Experience this revision as vividly as your assumption. Feel it as real. Then, proceed to your nightly practice and fall asleep in the state of the wish fulfilled. This is the complete method. There is nothing more you need. Nightly assumption. Morning reaffirmation, daily mental diet, evening revision. These 4 practices performed consistently will transform your financial life as surely as spring transforms the frozen ground. But I must give you one more thing before I close. And this is perhaps the most important of all. Persistence. The law works. It works for everyone who applies it correctly, but it does not work instantly in most cases. There is a time interval between the planting of the seed and the harvest. The length of this interval varies. I cannot tell you when your wealth will manifest. I can only tell you that it must manifest if you persist in the assumption. Scripture says, though it tar, wait for it because it will surely come. It will not tarry. This is not contradiction. It is pointing to the subjective feeling that sometimes accompanies waiting. It feels like the manifestation is delaying, taking too long. But in truth, it is moving toward you with the inevitability of dawn. It is being constructed on levels you cannot see. It is assembling itself from the materials of consciousness, and it will not fail. The story is told of a man who went to his neighbor at midnight to ask for bread. The neighbor was already in bed with his children and did not want to get up. But the man kept knocking. He persisted. He importuned, and finally, says the scripture, though the neighbor would not give him bread because of friendship, he would give it because of the man's persistence. This is the law of assumption. The neighbor is your own subconscious, comfortable in its familiar patterns, reluctant to change. But if you persist, if you keep knocking at the door with your assumption, if you refuse to take no for an answer, the door must open. The bread must be given, the wish must be fulfilled. Do not give up after a few nights. Do not abandon the practice because your bank balance has not changed by Friday. You are working with law, not magic. You are changing the foundation upon which your financial life is built. The building above must be reconstructed. This takes time, but it is happening. Every night that you fall asleep in the feeling of abundance, you are laying another stone. Every morning that you rise in the consciousness of wealth, you are adding another beam. The structure is being built. Trust the process. And when doubts come, as they surely will, do not fight them. Notice them, and then return to your assumption. The doubts are the old man, the former conversation, the habitual pattern trying to reassert itself. You put on the new man by returning again and again to the inner speech and feeling of fulfilled desire. Now, my friend, let me close this teaching with something to carry in your heart. You came here believing perhaps that money was something outside of you, something to be chased, earned, received from powers beyond your control. But now you know the truth. The power is within your imagination, which is Christ in you. The hope of glory is the only creative force in the universe. Your bank account is not your fate. It is your mirror. And the moment you change the reflection within, the outer reflection must follow. Tonight, when you lie down, you have a choice you did not have before. You can continue to fall asleep in the feeling of lack, repeating the ritual of poverty without knowing you are performing it. Or you can enter the sanctuary of your own imagination. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and plant the seed of abundance in the only soil where it can grow. I have given you the law. I have given you the method. Now you must give yourself the persistence. Remember this: you are not waiting for wealth. You are wealth. You do not hope to be provided for. You are provided for now. Your imagination is God, and God knows only fulfillment. What you assume with feeling, you become. What you persist in, believing, you experience. Tonight you plant the seed. Tomorrow you see the first green shoots. And nothing in heaven or earth can stop the law from fulfilling itself through you. For you are one with the law, and the law is one with you. Go and assume. Go and persist. Go and become the consciousness of wealth that has always been your birthright. The world is waiting to show you what you have always been. It only needs your permission, given in the silent sanctuary of imagination, where all things are made new. If this teaching has stirred something within you, if it has awakened even the smallest spark of recognition, I ask you to do something simple. Return to it. Watch it again. Let it deepen within you until it is no longer something you heard, but something you know. And if you know someone who is wrestling with lack, who has built a prison of limitation around themselves without knowing they were the architect, share this with them. Not because I asked you to, but because you remember what it felt like before you understood. You remember the weight of worry, the constant anxiety, the feeling that circumstances would your master and you were their servant. You would not wish that on anyone. Leave a word below. Tell me what state you are assuming tonight. Let the writing of it be your first act of commitment to the new conception of yourself. Let it be the declaration that seals your intention. And if you have not yet joined this community of seekers who are learning to create consciously, do so now. Subscribe. Return when I share more, for this work is endless and the rewards are beyond what the natural mind can conceive. Go now. The night is coming, and with it the opportunity to plant what you will harvest. Choose wisely. Choose abundance. Choose wealth. Choose the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And so it is. But wait before you go, before you close this teaching and return to the world of effects. Let me give you something more, because I know that understanding is one thing and living is another. And I want you to truly live this truth, not merely know it. Let me speak to you about the nature of consciousness itself. Because when you truly understand what you are, the practice becomes effortless. You stop trying to make something happen and simply allow what must happen to unfold. You are not a body that has consciousness. You are consciousness that temporarily wears a body. This is not mystical poetry. This is the most practical truth you will ever learn. Your body changes constantly. Every cell replaces itself. The atoms make up your hand today are not the same atoms that made it 7 years ago. Yet you remain. Something persists through all these changes. That something is consciousness. That something is the I am that looks through your eyes and thinks your thoughts and dreams your dreams. This consciousness, this I am, is not limited by the body it wears. It is not confined to the skull. It is not trapped in physical form. It is, as the mystics have always known, unlimited, divine. And it is this unlimited consciousness that creates your experience of limitation. Not because limitation is real, but because consciousness has assumed the state of limitation and is faithfully experiencing its own assumption. Do you see? The very power that creates your sense of poverty is the same power that can create your experience of wealth. It is not a different power. It is not something you must find or develop or earn. It is what you already are. You are using it right now. You have always been using it. Either you use it consciously or unconsciously. By design or by default. Most people live by default. They inherited beliefs from their parents, absorbed ideas from their culture, accepted limitations from their experiences, and now they live inside the structure those beliefs have created. They did not choose these beliefs consciously. They did not examine them or test them, or decide whether they wanted them. They simply absorbed them as a child absorbs language. And now those beliefs have become the invisible architecture of their lives. But you can choose. That is what this teaching offers you. Not new beliefs to replace the old ones. Not better beliefs to improve your life gradually, but the recognition that you are the chooser. You are the one who decides what state to occupy. You are the consciousness that wears the costume of limitation or abundance, poverty or wealth, struggle or ease. And when you know this, really know it, you no longer need to fight with the outer world. You simply change costumes. Let me give you another way to understand this. Because understanding deepens with repetition and different angles illumine different aspects of truth. Imagine that you are an actor in a play. The play has a script. The script says you are poor, struggling, worried about money, and so you play your part. You speak the lines of poverty. You make the gestures of lack. You feel the emotions of financial anxiety. The audience watches and believes that you really are poor. They feel sorry for you. They hope things will get better for you. But you know something the audience does not know. You know that when the play ends, you will remove your costume, wash off your makeup, and return to your actual life, which is nothing like the character you played. The poverty was never real. The struggle was never real. It was all a role, a temporary assumption, a state you occupied for the duration of the performance. Now here is the revelation. You are playing a role right now. The role of the person who worries about money. The role of the one who does not have enough. The role of the limited, being in a world of scarce resources. This role feels real because you have been playing it so long. You have forgotten that it is a role. You have confused the costume with your skin. The costume is not your skin. The role is not your identity. You can remove it at any moment. You can put on a different costume, assume a different role, speak different lines, and when you do, the whole play changes around you. The other actors adjust their performances. The scenery shifts. The plot moves in a new direction because the play is responsive to you. The play is created by consciousness, and you are that consciousness. So when I tell you to assume the feeling of wealth, I am not telling you to pretend. I am not telling you to lie to yourself. I am telling you to change roles, to remove the costume of poverty and put on the costume of abundance, to speak the lines of prosperity instead of the lines of lack, to feel the emotions of security instead of the emotions of anxiety. And here is the magic. When you change roles convincingly, when you truly inhabit the new character, the outer world cannot tell the difference between the role and reality because there is no difference. All of it is imagination. All of it is consciousness, assuming states and experiencing its own assumptions. The poor person and the wealthy person are both costumes worn by the same eternal actor. Choose your costume, choose your role, and the stage will rearrange itself to match your performance. Let me tell you about someone who understood this truth and applied it in circumstances far more difficult than anything you are likely to face. This is not a story I have told many times, but it is perfect for what I want you to understand. There was a man who found himself in prison. Not a metaphorical prison of bad circumstances, but an actual prison with bars and guards and walls that confined him completely. He had done nothing wrong. He was imprisoned unjustly, caught in a situation beyond his control, and the outer circumstances offered no hope of release. The legal system had failed him. The appeals had been denied. By every measure the world could offer, he was trapped. But this man knew the law I am teaching you. He knew that consciousness is the only reality, and that assumption persisted in must harden into fact. So he began to assume his freedom. Every night he would lie in his cell and imagine himself elsewhere. Not escaping, not being released, simply being free. He would feel the open air on his face. He would imagine walking down a street, going where he pleased, doing what he wished. He would feel the joy of liberty, the simple pleasure of being unconfined. Day after day, week after week, he persisted in this assumption. The bars of his cell did not disappear. The guards did not suddenly become friendly. The legal situation did not immediately resolve. But he continued. He persisted. He refused to accept the evidence of his senses as final. And then something happened. Something that the outer world would call coincidence, but which he recognized as the law fulfilling itself. A new attorney took interest in his case. Evidence was discovered that had been overlooked. Procedures were reviewed and found to be flawed. And, within a remarkably short time, the man who had seemed destined to spend years behind bars walked out a free man. Was it the imagination that freed him? The world would say no. The world would point to the attorney, the evidence, the legal procedures. But where did the attorney come from? How did he happen to take interest in this particular case? Why was evidence discovered now that had been missed before? The bridges of incident all trace back to a single source. The sustained assumption of a man who refused to accept imprisonment as his reality. This is what I mean when I say that circumstances do not matter. I do not mean that you should ignore them or pretend they do not exist. I mean that they are not the cause of your experience. They are the effect. They are the shadow cast by consciousness. Change consciousness and the shadow must change. This is law. Now, let me speak about something that trips up many people when they first begin this practice. They make the assumption. They do the nightly ritual. They feel the wealth, the abundance, the security. And then the next day they check their bank balance, and it is exactly the same or worse. And they lose faith. They think it did not work. I tried it and nothing changed. This must be false. But they have misunderstood what is happening. They have planted a seed and then dug it up the next morning to see if it had grown into a tree overnight. Of course, it had not. Seeds do not work that way. Neither does consciousness. When you make an assumption and hold it with feeling, you set something in motion. But the motion is not visible immediately. The motion is happening in the invisible realm where all creation begins. Think of it like this. When you decide to bake bread, you mix the ingredients. You place it in the oven. But then you must wait. You do not open the oven door every 30 seconds to see if the bread is ready. You trust the process. You know that heat does what heat does. You occupy yourself with other things, confident that when the time is right, the bread will be done. Your assumption is the dough. Your feeling is the kneading. Your sleep is the oven, and the manifestation is the bread. But there is a baking time, a period of invisible transformation, a gestation during which the seed becomes the plant, the egg becomes the bird, the assumption becomes the fact. During this time, your job is not to check constantly for results. Your job is to persist in the assumption, to continue feeling wealthy, even when the balance has not changed, to continue speaking the inner words of abundance, even when the outer world screams scarcity, to maintain the new state even when the old state presents its evidence. This is faith, not faith in something outside you. Not faith that some God will reward you if you believe hard enough, but faith in the law itself. Faith that consciousness creates reality. Faith that what you assume with feeling must become fact. This faith does not waver because the outer world has not yet caught up. This faith knows that the outer world is always catching up, always lagging behind, always reflecting what you were rather than what you are becoming. So when you do the work tonight and check your balance tomorrow and nothing has changed, do not be discouraged. Celebrate instead. You have planted the seed. The process has begun. The invisible machinery of creation is working on your behalf. Keep planting. Keep watering with feeling. Keep trusting the process. And one day, perhaps sooner than you imagine, you will check that balance and see a number that makes you gasp with joy. Not because the world finally decided to be generous, but because your consciousness finally expressed what it had been holding all along. Let me give you one more practice. Something to use when doubt becomes overwhelming. Because doubt will come. You are human. You have been conditioned for years to believe in limitation. That conditioning does not disappear overnight. It fights back. It presents evidence. It whispers in your ear that you are fooling yourself, that this is wishful thinking, that real life does not work this way. When doubt comes, do not argue with it. Do not try to suppress it or push it away. Doubt is not your enemy. Doubt is simply the old state trying to maintain its hold. Acknowledge it. Say to yourself, I see you doubt. I understand that you are here, but you are not the truth. You are a pattern, a habit, a ghost of what I used to believe, and I am choosing something new. Then return to the feeling. Return to the assumption. Feel, if only for a moment, the reality of wealth. Feel the security. Feel the abundance. It does not have to be a long meditation. It can be a brief moment of realignment, just enough to remind your consciousness of the state you are choosing to occupy. Think of it like tuning a radio. You want to hear a particular station, but interference keeps pulling the dial towards static. When you notice the static, you do not panic. You do not conclude that the station does not exist. You simply reach over and adjust the dial back to your desired frequency. That is what returning to the assumption does. It adjusts the dial of consciousness back to the frequency of abundance. Over time, with practice, the dial stays in place longer. The interference becomes less frequent. The new state becomes more natural, more habitual, more real than the old state ever was. And, eventually, you stop thinking about it entirely. Wealth becomes as natural as breathing. Abundance becomes your default setting. And you look back on the time when you worried about money and wonder how you ever believed such things. Now let me speak about giving, because this is a truth that may surprise you. Most people think that they cannot give until they have. They wait until they are wealthy to be generous. They hold tightly to what little they have, afraid that giving will deplete them further. But this is backwards. Giving is an act of faith in abundance. When you give, you are declaring to consciousness that you have more than enough. You are embodying the state of wealth. You are acting as the wealthy person acts. And because assumption determines experience, because consciousness creates reality, your giving accelerates your receiving. I am not telling you to give away money you need for food or shelter. I am not suggesting that you empty your bank account and trust that more will appear. I am speaking of the spirit of giving, the willingness to share, the openness to generosity. This spirit can express itself in many ways. Giving time, giving attention, giving kindness, giving encouragement. All of these are forms of abundance, and all of them expand the consciousness of wealth. When you encounter someone in need and you feel the impulse to help, follow that impulse. Not because helping will earn you reward, but because helping is what the wealthy consciousness does. It flows. It shares. It circulates. It does not hoard or grasp or cling. It knows that the supply is infinite and that giving only opens more channels for receiving. There is a principle in Scripture that speaks to this. Give and it shall be given unto you. Good measure pressed down, shaken together, running over shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure that ye met withal it shall be measured to you again. This is not morality. This is law. The measure you use is the measure you receive. If you give sparingly from a consciousness of lack, you receive sparingly. If you give freely from a consciousness of abundance, you receive freely. So practice giving even in small ways. Let the tip be a little larger. Let the donation be a little more generous. Let the compliment be more freely spoken. Let the time be more willingly offered. Each act of giving is an assumption of abundance. Each act of generosity is a declaration of faith in the infinite supply. and each declaration strengthens the state you are building. Let me now speak about something that many people overlook: gratitude. Gratitude is not merely politeness. Gratitude is not just saying thank you when something good happens. Gratitude is a state of consciousness, and it is perhaps the fastest way to enter the feeling of the wish fulfilled. When you are grateful, you are acknowledging that you have received something good. You are focusing on what is present rather than what is absent. You are inhabiting the state of having rather than the state of wanting. And this state, this feeling of having and appreciating, is exactly the state from which abundance flows. Begin each morning with gratitude. Before you rise, before you begin the day, lie in your bed and count your blessings. Not as an exercise, not as a chore, but as a genuine recognition of what is already good in your life. You woke up. That is something. You have a bed to sleep in. That is something. There is air in your lungs and thoughts in your mind and possibility in your day. These are not small things. These are miracles. When you train yourself to see abundance in what you already have, you train your consciousness to recognize abundance everywhere. And what consciousness recognizes, consciousness creates more of. This is not positive thinking in the shallow sense. This is reorienting your perception to see reality as it actually is: abundant, overflowing, infinitely generous. End each night with gratitude as well. Before you begin your assumption ritual, before you feel yourself into the state of wealth, take a moment to give thanks for the day that has passed. Not only for the good things, but for all of it. The challenges were teachers. The difficulties were opportunities to practice. The moments of doubt were invitations to return to faith. All of it served your growth. All of it moved you forward. Give thanks for all of it. And then as you slip into your assumption, as you feel the reality of abundance, let gratitude be the dominant emotion. Feel grateful for the wealth that is already yours in consciousness. Feel grateful for the manifestation that is coming. Feel grateful for the law that never fails. Let your last feeling before sleep be gratitude, and watch how quickly your world transforms. I want to speak now about patience, because this is a virtue that seems passive but is actually one of the most active forces you can employ. Patience is not mere waiting. Patience is faithful assumption, maintained over time. It is the steady holding of the state through all the appearances that seem to contradict it. It is the refusal to give up, the refusal to surrender to evidence, the refusal to abandon what you know to be true in favor of what appears to be real. The Bible speaks of the farmer who waits for the precious fruit of the earth, being patient over it until it receives the early and late rains. This farmer does not stand in the field demanding that the crops grow faster. He does not dig up the seeds to check their progress. He does not curse the sky for not raining on his schedule. He plants, he tends, he trusts, and he waits, because he understands that growth has its own timing, and that timing cannot be forced. You are that farmer. Your assumptions are the seeds. Your feelings are the water and the harvest. The manifestation of wealth will come in its season. Your job is to be patient while continuing to plant and water. Your job is to maintain the assumption while the invisible work proceeds. Your job is to trust the law even when the law seems to delay. And here is the secret about patience. It is not passive waiting. It is active persistence in this state. Every moment you remain faithful to your assumption, you are strengthening it. Every night you fall asleep in the feeling of abundance, you are adding power to the manifestation. Every time you return to the inner speech of wealth, after doubt has pulled you away, you are deepening the groove of the new habit. Patience is not doing nothing. Patience is doing the essential thing again and again and again. The world will test your patience. The world will offer opportunities to abandon your assumption. Bills will arrive. Unexpected expenses will appear. Other people will speak words of doubt and limitation. The news will proclaim economic disasters. All of this is the test. All of this is the invitation to return to the old state of fear and lack. But you have the power to refuse. You have the ability to observe these appearances without reacting to them. You can say, I see you, Bill. I see you. Unexpected expense. I see you. Words of doubt. But you are not my reality. You are the lingering reflection of an old state. My reality is the state I am now assuming, and I will persist in this assumption until the reflection changes. This is spiritual maturity. This is the development of consciousness. This is the path from slavery to freedom, from victimhood to creatorship. And it is available to you right now, in this moment, through the practice I have given you. Now, my friend, I have shared much with you tonight. Perhaps more than can be absorbed in a single listening. That is why I encourage you to return, to review, to let these truths sink deeper each time you encounter them. The law does not change. The practice but your understanding deepens, your faith strengthens, your ability to maintain the state improves, and each improvement brings you closer to the full realization of your abundant nature. Remember, you are not trying to get something you do not have. You are allowing something you have always had to express itself in your experience. Wealth is not foreign to you. It is your inheritance, your birthright, your natural state. The only thing that has kept it from manifesting is your assumption to the contrary. Change the assumption and the inheritance is claimed. You are the operant power. There is no other power that can create your experience. Not circumstances, not other people, not governments, not economies, not luck. Not fate, only you, only your consciousness, only your imagination. And when you fully accept this responsibility, when you stop giving your power away to external forces and claim it for yourself, you become unstoppable. Tonight, as you lie in your bed and close your eyes, remember who you are. You are consciousness itself, temporarily focused in a human form, endowed with the power to create through assumption. You are not a victim. You are a creator. You are not at the mercy of circumstances. You are the one who creates circumstances. You are not hoping for abundance. You are abundance itself, remembering what you forgot and returning to what you have always been. Assume it, feel it, live in it, persist in it, and watch as the world reshapes itself to match the majesty you have dared to claim. I leave you now with this blessing. May you never again look at your bank balance with fear. May you never again speak words of lack to yourself or others. May you never again assume poverty when abundance is your birthright. May you walk through your days in the consciousness of wealth, radiating security, generosity, and the deep peace that comes from knowing you are provided for. You are ready. You have been ready all along. The only thing missing was the knowledge. And now you have it. The only thing needed is the practice. And now you know what to do. The only thing required is persistence. And you have everything you need to persist. Go now. The night awaits. The subconscious awaits. The law awaits. Plant your seed of abundance and trust its inevitable harvest. And if this teaching has touched you, if it has opened something that was closed or illuminated something that was dark, share it. Let others know what you have discovered. Not everyone will understand. Not everyone is ready, but those who are ready will recognize the truth when they hear it, just as you recognized it tonight. Leave your comment. Subscribe if you have not. Return when you need reminding. We are walking this path together, each of us learning to create consciously, each of us discovering the power we have always possessed. This is not the end. This is the beginning of your conscious creation, the beginning of your abundant life, the beginning of everything you came here to experience. Before you go, let me address something that may be lingering in your mind. You may be thinking, this sounds beautiful, but what about the practical realities? What about the bills that must be paid next week? What about the debt that is already there? What about the job that does not pay enough? Am I supposed to just ignore all of that? Imagine. Let me be clear. I am not telling you to abandon practical wisdom. I am not suggesting that you stop paying bills or quit your job or pretend that obligations do not exist. The law of assumption does not ask you to be foolish in the world of effects. It asks you to be wise in the world of cause. Pay your bills. Meet your obligations. Do what must be done in the outer world. But while you do these things, do not let your consciousness be determined by them. Do not let the size of the bill determine the size of your feeling. Do not let the balance in your account become the measure of your worth or your possibility. Do what the moment requires, but hold in your heart the knowledge that these circumstances are temporary. They are reflections of an old state. They are the last echoes of a consciousness you have already begun to change. Think of it this way. When you decide to clean a house, the dirt does not disappear the moment you decide. You must still pick up the broom, sweep the floors, wipe the surfaces. The decision sets the direction, but the action completes the transformation. Similarly, your assumption sets the direction of your life, but you may still need to tend to the practical matters while the new reality takes form. The difference is in your consciousness. Before you paid bills from a feeling of resentment, fear, or desperation. Now you pay them from a feeling of gratitude and plenty. Before you went to work believing it was the only thing keeping you from poverty. Now you go to work knowing that it is one of many channels through which abundance can flow. Before you hoarded every penny out of fear that there would not be enough. Now you manage wisely but freely, knowing that the supply is infinite and that your good is on its way. This shift in consciousness is everything. The outer actions may look the same, but the inner state is completely different. And because consciousness creates reality, the changed inner state will eventually produce changed outer results. Let me also speak about the role of action in this work. Some people hear these teachings and conclude that they should do nothing but imagine. They sit in their rooms, visualize wealth, and wait for money to appear out of thin air. When it does not, they become frustrated and claim that the law does not work. But they have misunderstood. The law of assumption does not eliminate action. It transforms action. When you assume a new state, you begin to feel differently. And when you feel differently, you act differently. Opportunities that would have missed before now become visible. Doors that seem closed now appear open. People who could help you are drawn into your experience. And you find yourself doing things, taking steps, making choices that you would never have made from the old state of consciousness. The action does not create the result. The consciousness creates the result. But action is often the channel through which the result manifests. Do not resist action. Do not sit in paralysis waiting for miracles. Move, act, engage with life. But do it from the new state, not the old one. Do it from the feeling of abundance, not the feeling of lack. And watch how different the results become. There is a passage in Scripture that speaks to this. Faith without works is dead. This does not mean that works create results. It means that genuine faith naturally expresses itself in works. If you truly believe you are wealthy, you will act like a wealthy person, not extravagantly or foolishly, but confidently, generously, decisively. And these actions will be the natural expression of your consciousness, not a forced attempt to earn what you want. Let me also speak about what happens when you slip, because you will slip. There will be mornings when you wake up in fear instead of faith. There will be days when the old, inner speech returns with a vengeance. There will be moments when you completely forget everything I have taught you and react to circumstances as if they were your master. This is not failure. This is part of the process. The old patterns took years to establish. They will not be erased in a single night. What matters is not whether you slip, but how quickly you recover. What matters is whether you let a moment of doubt become a day of doubt, become a week of doubt, become a complete abandonment of the practice. When you slip, do not condemn yourself. Do not pile guilt on top of doubt. Simply notice, I have slipped back into the old state. I am thinking and feeling as I used to. And then gently, deliberately return. Return to the inner speech of abundance. Return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Return to the assumption that is your truth. This returning is not weakness. It is strength. It is the exercise that builds the muscle of consciousness. Every time you catch yourself in the old state and choose the new one, you are strengthening your ability to maintain the assumption. Every time you refuse to let a momentary slip become a permanent fall, you are proving your mastery. And this mastery is what ultimately makes the new state habitual, natural, automatic. Do not expect perfection from yourself. Expect progress. Expect that each day you will be a little better at maintaining the assumption. Expect that each week the old patterns will have less hold on you. Expect that each month the new state will feel more like home. And one day you will realize that you have not thought about money with fear in a very long time. Not because you forced yourself to stop, but because the fear has been replaced by faith. That day is coming. Trust it. Now, as I truly prepare to close, let me leave you with one final image. Imagine yourself 1 year from now. Imagine that you have practiced faithfully what I have taught you tonight. Imagine that you fell asleep in the feeling of wealth every night for a year. That you spoke the inner words of abundance day after day. that you revised every scene of lack and replaced it with plenty, that you persisted through every doubt, every delay, every test. What would your life look like? See it. See yourself 1 year from now living the life that your assumption has created. See the numbers in your bank account. See the ease with which you move through the world. See the joy on your face when you think about money. Not anxiety, but joy. See the generosity with which you give, knowing that the supply is endless. See the freedom that has replaced the imprisonment. This is not fantasy. This is prophecy. This is the vision of what must be if you persist in the law. The future is not fixed. It is fluid. It responds to consciousness. And the consciousness you hold today is creating the world you will inhabit tomorrow. So, hold this vision. Let it inspire you through the nights of practice. Let it sustain you through the moments of doubt. Let it remind you why you are doing this work. You are not simply trying to pay bills or get out of debt. You are transforming your relationship with abundance itself. You are claiming your inheritance as a creative being. You are returning to the garden for never should have been exiled. The gate to that garden is not locked. It never was. You simply forgot where the gate was located. Now you know it is located in imagination, in assumption, in feeling, in the silent chambers of consciousness where all things are created new. Enter that gate tonight. Enter it tomorrow night. Enter it every night until it is no longer something you enter, but something you are. And when you are established in that garden, rooted in that abundance, grounded in that knowing, you will look back on this moment and bless it. You will remember sitting here listening to these words, feeling the first stirrings of recognition. And you will give thanks, because this was the night everything changed. Not in the outer world yet, but in consciousness where all true change begins. Go and assume. Go and persist. Go and become. The law is with you. The power is in you. The abundance is yours. And so it is. Thank you.